Wendy is with us in studio today, and as I mentioned, it's a kind of hints and tips bonanza piece today. Lots of quick little pieces of advice to make the most of your consumer rights and awareness.
A lot of them are emails I've got recently that are common ones that I get, and they're situations where people can get into real trouble by making some small mistakes. This first one is actually probably the longest one. Some are very short. I have no idea how many we'll get through, but let's just wade in. And
this is on how to avoid car
huge.
rental remorse, and it's a big issue. Anybody who has ever had an accident or any kind of issue with a rental car,
or not had the
or
accident,
not had,
even,
but been
but
accused of having
exactly.
one, it adds up fast.
I have to say, I'm sorry, car rental industry, but if you actually read the small print properly, every word, and digested what it means, even if you have the top waiver, the super waiver, there are conditions, situations such as not having a collision without another car, such as driving on gravel, such as damaging the undercarriage of the car, where that super waiver doesn't protect you from anything. You're responsible for the full damage, and it's potentially huge. Anyway, this is a common situation, and I was prompted to share this one. The advice being never be in a hurry or distracted when collecting or dropping off a rental car, because there is just such a lot at stake. And it was prompted by a listener's email, which went like this. On the 4th of January, I went to Durban with my wife for a holiday, and we hired a car. We were told that the car is new and only one dent on record. When I asked to inspect the vehicle, the woman told me no need, and we drove away and went and enjoyed a wonderful holiday. When we returned the vehicle on the 7th of January, we were told that it had a dent, and we told the gent who was helping us with that it must be the known one, and they let us go. A few days later, we were told that we'll be charged for damage to the vehicle. In short, he contested it, and they took the money off anyway. He didn't say how much. And this is the crux of his email. I must admit, I do feel a little silly that I didn't take pictures when I received the vehicle. There was no note that I signed, which should have been a flag as well. But I was distracted by a call from my son's school. We can all relate to that.
Yeah.
So I was on the phone, and he was distracted.
Wendy, I mean, so many of us can relate to that. A lot of people are in a hurry because think about it. You're either arriving ready to start your holiday and you want to get on the road and get there,
or you've got a plane to catch,
or you're rushing to get to the plane at the end of the holiday. So it's very easy to rush through this process,
especially if you've been held up in traffic, which we can all relate to as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this is so. Rather miss your plane, and I would really say it would be cheaper
to miss your plane than to risk getting caught like this.
Yes, absolutely. I've had so many. Please believe me. So the first thing is never fall for the no need to inspect line. I had this happen to me in early December. Big company, and I said, and they'd recognized me. It's Durban, my hometown, and they recognized the name, and were like, and don't worry, it was evening, and off you go. I said, sorry, are you expecting me not to take my own advice? Bring the car, let's put it under proper light. Don't go. That's the other thing, dark parking lot. Show me what you've noted in your list, and I can tell you I'm going to add some things, because don't ever think something's too minor. So we did that, and they were a bit sheepish about it. And I said, please don't tell people that they can't inspect the car. They must inspect the car. Anyway,
I always take photographs of
and
the car.
That's the next thing.
Okay.
Take photos of any issue.
Don't just inspect, actually record it and keep it on your phone.
This is so important. And then make them add it as well. And if they won't, then you take the picture yourself as evidence. And then when you drop the car off, similarly, and in this case, if engage with the person you've handed the car over to, and then say, please have a quick look, and then you say to them, are there any problems? And if they say no, that's fine. And if you haven't actually signed for it, in this chap's case as well, you haven't signed acknowledgement.
Okay.
Yes, because even if there was a pre-existing one, there could be, who's to say that was the one, or, something can happen to the car afterwards, after you've handed. That's the whole point of you inspect before you take the keys, or before you drive off in the car, and you note any damage before you hand it back, because then whatever happens after you hand the key back is not on you. You're not liable for it. And just taking the time to do these things, it can take a few minutes, but whoa.
Yeah. Somebody just commenting on the WhatsApp line, the areas where you collect rental cars are often in a very remote and dark part of the airport. So
that's fine. So without me asking them, actually, because that was the case, the one chap went off and brought the car to outside the office where it was nice and light, and I could see it's not as ideal as daytime. So ideally take the car in daytime, but they preempted what my next thing was going to be. Now I'm not looking at this car and it's so dark.
Yeah.
And why is it so dark? Think about that. I mean,
Yeah.
why is it so dark?
Because they're hoping you won't notice, or
No,
I don't know.
I
It's-
don't
yeah,
know. I
what's-
mean, I can't say that for sure, but it's a little bit dodgy for me.
So bottom line, make sure you have budgeted enough time in your traveling process, time for an inspection at the beginning and a proper inspection at the end.
To take photos.
So when you are planning your route back to the airport, budget that extra half an hour that
And
might be needed to do it properly.
Open,
Yeah.
especially in stormy areas, Joburg,
Yeah.
Durban, open the door, stand on the sill, and look at the windscreen for hail damage. I mean,
At the top,
the
the roof of the car.
Look for
Okay,
hail
that's a
damage.
good tip.
If there's undercarriage, I mean, I had a case like that, and it didn't feature. They didn't look afterwards. But I mean, how many people
Would go and look at the
especially
bottom of
dressed
the car.
in work attire,
Yeah.
are gonna, especially if it's dark, you're not gonna know. So you are quite vulnerable on that score. It's a lot.
So, I mean, again, and I'm going to emphasize this is where your cell phone is your best friend. Record lots and
Yes.
lots of photos. And I would also say, Wendy, you have the right to record yourself. Surely saying to the person, I'm returning the car, is everything okay?
Any bit of evidence
And
you
record
can
them
get.
saying, yes, all good,
Yes.
thank you very
Yes.
much, goodbye.
Yeah.
And don't forget to take pictures of the petrol tank and the speedometer as well.
That's the other thing.
You can tell I'm a bit paranoid about this,
Yes.
Wendy, but I've also received too many examples of people who were hit with massive bills for thousands of rand who were adamant that it wasn't damage.
I
they
actually had
done.
that in my
Yeah.
previous trip, and I cut it down because this was too long. But when you take your car in for a service as well, take pictures of the odo. Anytime your car goes out of your hands, or if you acquire a car that you're going to be driving that belongs to somebody else that you might be held liable for, also take a photograph of the odo.
Okay, so use that phone and allocate the time when you are involved in any kind of car hire issue. Somebody else saying also always check the spare tire, jack, and wheel spanner that they're there and in
could go-
working order.
Yes, you
I
could
mean,
go
we
on
could
and
do
on.
a whole show on this one
Yes,
alone, yeah.
Absolutely.
But the bottom line and the takeaway point is don't rush the process.
No.
Leave enough time at the start and the end.
And I watch
do a proper
people.
check.
I watch people at airports, and very few do this.
Yeah.
If you've been caught, the person who's doing it is either a consumer journalist or they've been caught or someone
Before
that they
and
know.
learnt the hard way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we will get back to some other car-related issues a bit later on, but the next one is for the ladies in the audience, and
We're
it's
gonna-
how to avoid paying pink tax just to keep your
Yes.
legs and armpits smooth.
We've spoken about razor blades recently, but this one tickled me. It's a woman tweeted, "I'm sorry, but tagged me. I'm sorry, but the price of razor blades is actually insane. Are you nuts?" And then she shared a pic of a pack of 4 Gillette Venus, i.e. for women, in a nice soft color, replacement blades. 4 blades. They were those 5-blade blades. What do I call them? 5, it started out being 1 blade. Then it became duo blades. Then it was 3 blades. Now we're up to 5
This was a
blades
quattro
on
and
one.
now a quintro,
Yes,
whatever.
exactly.
Yes, okay.
And that's key to this little tip. So those 4 5-blade replacements were selling for 550 Rand, which is 137 Rand each. And if you chose the Olay version, there's a little collab there between Gillette Venus and Olay, presumably some kind of moisturizing strip, you pay 570 Rand a pack, so another 20 Rand. The comments on Twitter were full of great advice on how to avoid that astronomical cost. But my best piece came from Andrew Fraser, a techie who we've used on the show, various things in the past, said you don't need 4 or 5 blades. Just buy a men's 3-blade razor or blade, replacement blades by Gillette or Stick. Or Schick, sorry,
Schick,
not
yeah.
Stick, Schick. A third of the price. So, you don't need, what are we going to have, like 10 blades? Is it like
Where
you're
does it stop? Yeah.
Exactly. So he said the 3 blades are just fine. It's more than you're going to get in most disposable ones, I think. I haven't looked recently. But he says, for the rest is paying pink tax and for extra blades. So the two together are not a good combo, and then you'll be paying 137 Rand.
Okay, so go back to the men's section and
3
buy
blades.
It will not kill you to use a blue razor.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
with 3
I can
blades.
vouch
yeah.
for that.
Okay, I can too, because that's all I do. All
Or
right.
a silver one. I mean, they're not all blue or black.
I don't care if it's bright orange,
exactly.
as long as it does the job.
Exactly. So
Okay.
next one, I'm going to go whiz quickly through this because I've got 20-something, and at this rate, we're going to do 10.
Okay.
SMS scams. And you are vulnerable if you are expecting delivery, either from, if you've bought online or somebody's sending you a gift. If you're expecting a parcel at the post office, from a courier, whatever, be hyper aware of an SMS claiming to be about your parcel. So if it arrives at the same time, you might follow the advice, click on the link and pay some small fee. What can go wrong? It's very small, some kind of tax or something.
Yeah.
And it's not about that. It's about once you've clicked through and they'll ask for all your details, the 3-digit number, all of that, and then they can raid your account. So the people that fall for it are the ones where that scam email arrives just at the right moment when they're expecting delivery, and they just make this assumption. So if they really look at one recently, they really look at the SMS. Doesn't say which company they ordered from. It doesn't say the order number. It doesn't say all the normal things that would be there, right? So the best defense to all these terrible scam variations is, as we've said so many times, is to be hyper aware of detail and on high alert at all times.
High alert at all times, and never click on the link directly.
Of course.
Okay. Before we move on, Wendy, I believe we've got a voice note responding to the car hire issue that we'd like to play. Just a reminder, if you would like to weigh in either with your personal experience or with a follow-up question, you're welcome to send a voice note to 072 567 1567.
Morning, CapeTalk. David from Durbanville. Another issue you need to be aware of when hiring a car and taking it back is that if they see any beach sand in it, they will charge you for a full valet, which could be anything from 500 to 1,500 Rand. I was caught out by Avis on this, and the crazy thing is it was a business trip. I didn't even go to the beach when I was in Durban. So it was obviously sand left over from the previous people who they didn't clean out, and yet I was charged 1,500 Rand for a valet.
Okay, I've had this before. I mean, I say my car rental list is very long, and it's very valid. In this case, the people did go to the beach with their kids. They got a brush and pan from their Airbnb, and they did the best they could. But that it's true. They'll say their guys can't do it. It needs a specialist vacuum cleaner, and so they outsource it, whether they do or not, how do we know?
Yeah.
And then hence the very hefty valet fee. But in his case, maybe I should add that to the checklist. Open the doors, look inside and see if there's beach sand in there, and say, hey, that's not my beach sand. Very good tip. Add that to the
add it to the pre-list, and acknowledge that it was there already.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Anonymous, saying with regards to razors, I suggest buy an old-fashioned reusable razor that you can open and change the blades. It's more eco-friendly too, and you can get them on Faithful to Nature. Well, that's the whole point. You want to be able to replace blades, not have to throw away an entire disposable razor every time.
My almost 25-year-old son has recently switched to that. He bought it on Amazon at some like a really good brand at an astronomical price, but he gave me the maths around the replacement blades.
Okay.
And it's a really good shave apparently, and he's going to treasure this thing forever. So
great suggestion.
Good
Thank
retro.
you. And look for it on Faithful to Nature if you would like to find it. Okay, the next one is for the impulse shoppers in the audience, Wendy.
Yeah, I just try to mix it up, and I was reading this book called The Brain Cell, as an SEL, by David Newton, about so many of us just can't resist impulse shopping, especially when we're holidaying, and apparently our conscious mind can only hold one major idea at a time, and by giving your brain something crazy and vivid to imagine, Newton says you'll prevent it from dwelling on anything else, including what's screaming buy me at you, just long enough to break you out of that trance, right? And sort of think, okay, and have that little go-to image, whatever it is for you, and it's apparently scientifically proven to actually help people who are very susceptible to impulse buying, especially if you're feeling down or whatever. Having that funky image or whatever it is for you does the trick. So if anyone wants to is in that category and wants to try it, let us know how that works.
I find this intriguing. So if you are somebody who is susceptible to that you're on the Takealot or whatever site it is that you're shopping, and the pair of high-heeled boots that you absolutely feel you have to have.
You have 4 in the cupboard.
That you didn't need.
Yes.
Rather than hitting pay, before you hit pay, rather
force
look away
yourself
from the
to
screen and think of what? Give us an example.
Well, this example was that, and apparently psychologists say this works. What did I not? I didn't give the example. A pink elephant diving into a bowl of blue custard. So that's the one that psychologists use. I've actually heard that before, but that might not do it for you. You might want to imagine your own silly little thing that you go to. But if you can't think of one, a pink elephant diving into blue custard will certainly do. And that can also then become your sort of trigger for stop and think about this a little bit.
Do you actually need to make this
Yeah,
purchase?
and if you still feel like it after that, well, okay. There's another list of checks we can go to on how can you return it and what what will it cost you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was quite a quick, quirky one to share.
So just before we go to news, a follow-up from Jane on the subject of the courier service SMS. She says, can you shed any light on where or how these scamsters are getting hold of our details? It seems to be happening to me a lot.
Everyone wants to know this, and we keep
Yeah.
giving the answer. And that is, we've had a series of major data leaks. Credit bureaus, you name it, government organizations. So if you have credit active, and this happened to me, your whatever information is sitting on your credit bureau, and go and check because a lot of it is outdated. Your address, your phone number, your whatever it is, your balance, your what you're spending where kind of thing is there, and so the fraudsters have it. What they need is they can have your account number, but they can't have the keys to your safe without you giving them to them, the passwords and whatever. And that's why where all these tricks come from. They'll phone you and pretend they're phoning from the fraud division of your bank. And I get these emails all the time, and people say it has to be an inside job. They knew this and this and this about me because they've got your credit information, they've got your account numbers, they've got your ID, they've got your address.
So they seem credible.
They seem credible, and people keep saying, no, we've got to understand. It's a scary thought that people have got your information. They can open an account in your name, which is why you need to pay for credit alerts or whatever, and be alerted when someone's trying to open an account in your name, or take out a loan in your name, or open an MTN account in your name. We need to, and thank you for this question, because it isn't in, and this is one of the biggest tips ever, it isn't in my list, on my list, is to understand your information is there, and then do it. Know also that in either to get into actual bank account, they need your help, but to open an account, they don't. But you need to use the tools at your disposal. Either check your credit record regularly, check your SMSs when someone's trying to do a SIM swap. We all on WhatsApp a lot, and we may perhaps ignore SMS a little bit, but check those alerts, because then you can stop it quickly.
A couple of WhatsApps responding to some of the top tips you've already shared, Wendy. And here is one from Gary, who says, listening to the discussion about razor blades, I have to comment that I'm on my second Philips electric razor in 30 years, and I shave every day. The current one cost me about 1,000 Rand in 2009. They are way cheaper than any disposable razor, and there are no maintenance costs either in all of those years.
I don't know if any woman who take to their legs with an electric razor, do you?
Ooh, ouch. The very thought of it makes me wince. But yes, okay, but for a man, certainly
yes.
a more affordable and planet-friendly alternative than a disposable razor, certainly. Thank you for that. Dorothy, okay, no, that's a different one. We'll hang 10 on Dorothy's comment there. But thank you. So either opt for an electric razor, or there's the person recommending the old-fashioned reusable razor where you just open up and change the blades. Also a more planet-friendly alternative. Okay, let's get back to Wendy's list of tips and tricks. And gym contracts, Wendy, if we had a rand for every gym complaint we had covered over the years,
and
we'd be retired.
Yeah, so there's this thing. I get a lot of complaints from people who want to cancel their gym contracts for whatever reason, and they're hit with this cancellation penalty, which the Consumer Protection Act allows for. It says you can cancel early, but you can also be charged a reasonable cancellation penalty. And what the gyms do is they make it a certain percentage of the number of months left, right? And you should always check that percentage before you sign up.
Yeah.
So some get as high as 70 or 80%, which is definitely not reasonable, but it sits there and it catches you when you want to get out of it. And also know that the statistics, I've never got hard ones, but I've read a lot of articles. The majority of people who sign up, unless they are committed gym bunnies who are now re-signing, first-timers or people who have lapsed and now rejoining, they tend to not last more than a few months. So when the salesperson says sign up for 3 years because you'll pay less per month, they're telling the truth, but not the whole truth, because they know that the likelihood of you going the 3 years is very small for various reasons. And then you're left with a percentage of 33 months instead of 8 or whatever if you happen to sign. So if you do sign the 12 months one, they disincentivize you by charging it's more per month. But trust me, for it's most likely that it is going to work out the cheapest for you. So that's the biggest gym sort of con in my book.
So don't fall for the long-term
Don't- and
contract
plus-
unless you are absolutely certain you're
Yeah.
going to use it.
Exactly. And most people, and even if you're absolutely sure, you could get injured, you could move, a lot of life happens in 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
And that one was prompted by an email from Louis saying his gym closed down recently, just 3 months after they sold him and many others a 36-month contract for 3,500 rand. So it was paid up front. And that's the other thing. If you're paying it up front, it's so cheap. Well, if you're putting it on your credit card and you factor in the massive interest, that's maybe not another
cheap as you
reason not to
thought.
be. Yeah. So sign up for the shortest possible time. Please trust me on this.
Okay.
This next one is a bit of a quirky one. And I'm ashamed to say that I learned this recently for the first time. So I like my candles. We've spoken about tea lights, but I also like the pillar candles. And how many times do you light the candle and then it burns, instead of using all the wax, it burns this lovely little tunnel down the middle, and you've left with this useless wax on the side, unless you're into melting down the wax and making your own candle, whatever. Well, there's a way to avoid that.
Okay.
And that is to get it right the first time. So the first burn is critical, and you need to establish an adequate melt pool. And the size and the depth of the melt pool will determine how long your candle then lasts. So, and how evenly it will burn. So make it sure it's flat. And in that very first time you light the candle, let the wax melt across evenly the entire surface of the candle, and only then blow it out. And then you shall have full proper use of your pillar candle. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
I
So you
don't
need
feel
to
so
give it a
stupid.
good long burn
Yes,
the first
maybe
time you
burn
light
it during the
it.
day, not for like an hour or something at night over dinner, or and then put it out or whatever.
You
So-
give it a good long burn until the flat
I
surface
just thought
is
it's worth
completely
sharing
covered.
because these things
Okay.
are expensive, and
They
then
are.
what I do is you end up putting like a tea light inside the wax that hasn't
That's
melted
left
'cause you-
there.
yes,
Okay.
inside the tunnel. I mean, probably should have known this a long time ago, but I'm sharing it because I thought I possibly wasn't alone.
Okay. Now, the next few are to do with travel issues.
Mm.
And Wendy, again, such a common source of pain and suffering and big expense in people's lives. First one might seem really obvious, but make sure your airline has got your phone number. Why wouldn't your airline have your phone number?
Because someone else did the booking for you, and they put their own number in there. Either a company, I often have my flights paid for, or a relative who wasn't thinking, or someone, a benefactor, and they're just going through the details and they put their own number there. So I got a complaint from someone who spent 4 hours at Lanseria, and was insistent that Safair hadn't notified her, and I took it up.
Of a delay.
Of the delay, yes. And she
Okay.
said, I felt very vulnerable and and investigated it, and the airline came back to me to say, we didn't have her number. It would have gone to an agent who then obviously didn't alert her.
Didn't forward it to
Whoever it was, or a family member, a daughter, whatever, who had paid. And the passenger's number wasn't on the booking, and that is very, very important. The traveler's number must be there.
I'll add to that as well. Most of the airlines now have their own app. It's a really good idea to download that app and have your flight, your flight detail entered for exactly this kind of scenario, because you then get sent a message in the app if there is a delay.
Exactly. I think this applies to a lot of older people. It's
Who don't
generally-
use apps.
Who
yeah.
don't use apps, and whose tickets are bought perhaps by somebody else. And they
Okay, so
don't put
make
their
sure
number
your
on.
phone
Yeah.
number has gone in. Okay. And then before we leave the travel issues, okay, well, while we're speaking with on time and delays and stuff, Wendy, you had an interesting comment about how to check the reliability of airlines
I do
for
this
on time
regularly.
arrivals.
Yes. So AXA's website, easily found. You go onto the AXA website, and then you do a search for on-time performance, and there you will find a little grid that has all our we're talking domestic here, all our domestic airlines, and they'll do a general. It's that month, the current month, and then year to date.
Okay.
And it's measured, it's stated in terms of percentages, so it'll be 78%, 94%. And just to mention that it's considered in time if the plane pushes back from its parking space within 15 minutes of its scheduled departure, because they can't control what happens after that. There might be a hold up on the runway or whatever. So that's how it's measured. So that they do have a bit of
interesting.
leeway. And yeah, you can see the ones that, certainly if you look year to date, you can see the trends. And it's just interesting apart from the inconvenience, if your plane is delayed, there's a lot more, especially out of OR Tambo Airport in Johannesburg. There's there's the possibility of your bag being pilfered increase. So it's important from that perspective as well.
Okay, thanks for the hint.
Yeah.
Now, the next one is such an important one, and it's such an expensive one to get wrong, and this is to do with visas. Wendy, I know we've dealt with our fair share of people worrying about the lead time getting visas and getting appointments to book for visas, but this is really important. This is the visa that a lot of people forget that they need.
And bear in mind that the travel agencies, a lot of them have clauses in their thing, in their contracts, which state that they're not responsible for giving correct visa information. If there's something that goes wrong with the issuing of a visa, they're not to blame. It's on you. And as you say, what an expensive mistake. So I hear from so many people on South African passports whose holidays were spoiled because they didn't know that you need a UK transit visa when flying to a European destination. This doesn't apply to the US. Or if you're flying to a European destination via London, even if you don't plan to exit the airport, I think it's a reasonable kind of assumption to make that you won't need a visa, but you actually do. And they will, in most cases, stop you before you even get on the flight. So this Rosalie and her family arrived at OR Tambo not long ago for their flight to Portugal via London, were denied boarding by British Airways staff because they didn't have UK transit visas. So that's where they check. And so they had to pay for new flights. They had a whole holiday planned and hotels booked and everything. They took a flight on Lufthansa with a Frankfurt stopover. So that was a very expensive lack of information. As I say, they've got no comebacks anywhere.
And it's so if you are transiting through anywhere to anyone else, it must be checked. It's different for every airport in every country.
And every destination.
Schiphol, for example, I think you don't have to worry about that. If you're just landing there and moving on somewhere else, you don't have to worry about the Schengen visa.
Check and double check.
But Heathrow, I know for sure. I know so many people who've made this mistake, Wendy.
Think about
who thought
that.
It was, well, I'm not leaving the airport, so I won't need the British visa, but you actually do. And tip here is there are so many great travel communities on Facebook where you get up-to-date current information, not only from travel agents and suppliers, but from people who have just been on the same trip you're doing.
Because things change, things are quite dynamic. I think there's probably a lot of it came out of COVID when things were changing so dramatically.
Well, I was going to say, one of the best ones is still called South Africans Flying During COVID, because I think they've never worked out how to change the name of the group. But it's so full of great experienced travelers, and you can say, I'm flying next week.
Yes.
Who knows if the bus service from Heathrow Terminal 1 to Terminal 3 is still operating, or how long does it take? And you'll get an answer from somebody who's just done it.
Yeah. Or how far is it from this terminal to that? Should I get assistance for my 8-year-old
And this is one of the most commonly recurring complaints and questions from people saying, do I need a transit visa? Okay, so please, if you are going via one country to another, check that you do not need a visa for the transit phase of the trip, not just the end destination. Okay, now just to go back to the razor blades, Wendy, we could have done a whole show on razor blades by the looks of things, and then we'll take a short break before we continue. The comment is the companies who hold the razor blade agencies in South Africa are frankly ripping off the consumers. I was in the USA a few years ago and went to Costco, where I purchased a bulk pack of 50 Gillette Mock razor blades for less than $20.
And mock doesn't mean fake. He means
M-A-C-H, mock razor blades. Okay. So, their suggestion is that Wendy should be looking into the retail strategy and ethics of this industry.
Not the first one to
for a future show. Put that in your pipe and think about it, Wendy. Somebody's comment on the WhatsApp line is, Pippa, sometimes you need 2 hours with Wendy. I think in this case we do, Wendy. This might have to be a to-be-continued show because we're getting to really interesting content here, and I don't want to leave anything out, but maybe this will continue next week. For now, though, there is one that I read, and I just thought that is one we absolutely must share with our listeners, and that is to do with dormant store accounts. How many people have once upon a time had an account at Fashini or Poetry or wherever it was that you used to shop, and then you find, for whatever reason, maybe their buyer's changed, you don't like their style anymore, you don't use it anymore. It's not good enough, Wendy, to simply pay off your final account and forget about it.
One of the biggest wrong assumptions that consumers make across the board, and it's in these days of fraud, that is just asking for trouble. And also, in terms of the National Credit Act, these retailers are allowed to charge you a monthly service fee whether you know it or not. So if you're not paying, that fee is piling up. You should be getting an account. But we discovered during COVID, when people stopped shopping for long periods, we're like, how come I still owe whatever? Because every month that service fee, it's not a lot, it's under 30 Rand, I think.
It still accumulates.
But it accumulates. So, but the bigger problem is fraud. So And I must say, the retailers don't make this easy, many of them, to try and you pay your account and then you want to get a paid up letter and confirmation that the account is closed. And it is very hard to do. And I took on RCS not long ago to say you should inform your customers if they've paid up and have been paid up for a couple of months. They don't want to do that, of course, because they want to keep it open. They can still charge the service fees. But if you really had your customers interested hot, that's what you do. You tell them, do you want to close this account? If so, this is what you should do. But they're not going to do it. So I'm telling you that do it, and don't stop harassing them until you get a letter confirming that the account is paid up and closed and you don't owe anything, because it could be fraudulent, it could be a mistake, but you could have a debt collector coming after you sometime down the line, and then you have no proof that you closed the account.
Okay, so you want something in writing confirming it's a zero
and
balance.
It's not that easy to get, and there's
a
a reason for that. So really be absolutely determined, and if you're still not getting it, then let me know, and I'll take them on.
Interesting follow-up here from somebody saying, what about if the shop itself has closed, like a Donna Claire? What do you do to close an account with a store that doesn't exist anymore?
Donna Claire, it's easier if it's part of a group, and Donna Claire is part of a group. I just can't think which one. Ladies, the specialty stores, I'm not sure. But you should go to the company that owns them. They generally have several brands that they have, they have accounts on all of them. Sorry if I'm speaking out of turn about which one Donna Claire belonged to. I just can't think at the moment. And if it's a standalone, I would be proactive and get hold of, if they've been liquidated, which happens like...
It is Fashini. Okay, so I was sitting here going, I think it's Fashini Group.
Thank you.
It's part of the Fashini Group, yeah.
Okay, so that's easy, and if it shouldn't be a problem, but I have media contacts with that group if they would like my help with that. But if it's gone into liquidation, like, do you remember the old what was it before it was Virgin? Lifestyle.
Sand and Health and Rackets clubs. Health and Racket, yes.
Health and Racket.
Yeah.
We've called it the Wealth and Rolex.
Yes.
Yes, they liquidated, and then these really dodgy debt collectors obviously sold the book or something, and then added on, they said people didn't pay it was closed. And I worked on this story for years. So I would certainly, if the place is liquidated, I would go to the liquidators and say, I want a letter confirming that that the account is now closed and that I don't owe anything.
Okay.
And even if you do owe a little bit, just pay it off, because you don't want it attracting
interest any further.
So it's a very good point. If it's just because a company closes, a retailer closes, if you have an account with them, take steps, contact a holding company or the liquidator or something, just to get written proof that it's closed and you don't owe anything. Yeah.
Now, while we're speaking of debt collectors chasing things, Wendy, maybe we've got time to finish with an open line query that came in on the WhatsApp line earlier in the week. Somebody wrote to say, I keep on receiving requests and demands to pay my TV license. I don't own a television. How does my cell number get connected to some debt collector for payment of a TV I don't own? I never reply. I simply block it, but it regularly appears on my phone with a cell phone number saying I should contact them to pay my license. Is there a way to track where these numbers are being used from? And is there any way to check who actually owns that television and why I keep getting these calls? I'm loath to phone the SABC and give away more personal information which could be abused to solve this.
So this is probably coming from a debt collector. One of the SABC outsources debt collection to several legal firms. So phoning the SABC will probably achieve nothing. If it's the case that he obviously doesn't have a TV license number because he never owned a TV. I don't know. He says he didn't have a TV. Did he say he never owned a license? I don't know. But this is a finger trouble or some kind of mistake with the cell phone number, rather than him legitimately being hassled for a debt that he doesn't legitimately own. If his credit if his credit record doesn't show this, reflect this license arrears, license debt, TV license debt, then he hasn't got anything to fear. It's just a nuisance thing. If he's got the energy for it, he could contact the debt collectors and say, this is not my cell phone number, please investigate. But there's nothing legally they can do to him because it's not him. It's just his number.
Yeah.
I have had people come to me that have done that, gone back over and over and said, this is not my number. It often happens with municipalities, and it just keeps on coming. So you just delete the darn thing and get on with your life.
Just ignore.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you wanted it, if the person is listening and suddenly going, gosh, maybe I did have a television license 20
Just
years
check
ago.
the number. They'll put the number on the demand.
So you ask the SABC to check
Or,
that.
or your ID number will be attached. But I think in this case, it seems more likely to me that it's just a case of a wrong cell phone.
Of an admin error somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And keep on deleting, keep on blocking.
Or someone
Yeah.
deliberately giving the wrong number so that they can't be found.
For the debt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've discussed that one before as well.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Wendy, I think we've got time to finish with one last
Which
suggestion.
one? We've got so many left
And
over.
I'm going to suggest taking screenshots
Oh,
of
yes.
corporate WhatsApps. And
Yes.
this is it might seem like a level of paranoia, but actually when Wendy explains why, if you are engaged with a communication with any kind of service provider by WhatsApp,
Which is becoming a lot
Quite
more
common.
popular. I think it's a little bit unprofessional, but some of the less scrupulous providers, service providers, are doing this. I see they switch to WhatsApp, and then
use disappearing message function.
use disappearing message function. Thank you. My brain stalled there for a moment because we never used to have that long ago. Because
Yeah.
it's a new technological development, which is fine for you. But when a service provider does that, in terms of deleting an undertaking they've given you to refund you or to finish a job by a certain amount or to provide a service at a certain amount, or it could be a quote or whatever, and then it disappears, you have absolutely no evidence. So I would say direct them to email. That's still a professional way to engage. But before you do that, just take screenshots of
what was
those
promised, yeah.
those WhatsApps so that you have your own evidence, because I've had a couple of cases come through where that's happened. And which is why I'm giving this advice. I would never have thought to give it otherwise.
I mean, as you said, it sounds frightfully paranoid, but if it's being exploited,
It's being exploited.
then this is a good way to protect yourself against it. So if they've made you a promise of some kind of service offering or given you a quote on an amount and you need to have proof of that offer going forward, screenshot it and do a dump onto a computer and save it in a file somewhere,
Yes.
and hope you never have to look at it
Yeah,
again.
but you've got it for small
But if you
claims
do,
or for
it's
me
there.
or consumer goods and services on board or wherever you want to go for help.
Okay. So we're going to pause there, but we'll pick up with the other half of the list of consumer tips and savvy tricks
work
to
is
make
done.
you a little better at navigating the consumer world when Wendy's back with us next week, Wednesday. Also, just to finish with my usual reminder that if you do want to bring a case to Wendy, the best thing to do is send an email to consumer@knowler.co.za, spelled KNOWLER. Please put the words CapeTalk in the subject line and also pop in a word or two describing the nature of the problem. So CapeTalk, price of razor blades, for example, and make sure all of the information is in one single email, including all relevant account numbers and names and dates, please. Wendy, thanks as always. We'll chat again
Thanks,
next week.
Pippa.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on Cape Talk.